everyone, back at it again in my little yellow kayak. I just launched the kayak and I'm headed out into some sea smoke. In case you're not familiar, sea smoke is caused by a temperature differential between cold air and warm water. And we've got 55-degree air temps, so pretty cool. And the water is really warm, like bath water. I would guess it's close to 80 degrees. So that's a pretty big spread. The difference, at least to me, between sea smoke and fog is that the fog rolls in and covers everything. It covers the land, water, you name it. It's all blanketed in by fog. Sea smoke is only over the part of the water with the biggest temperature differential. It's not on land. If I go a couple hundred yards inland, there's no fog. There's no sea smoke, and that's because there's no temperature differential. There's no heat sink. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about paddling in the fog. So paddling in the fog, you want to be careful of two things, maybe three. First is, the easiest, is to try to keep land on one side of you. If you keep land on one side of you, it's really hard to get lost. And if you feel like you can't see land very well anymore, you just paddle closer to the land. Second thing is, you want to be careful of powerboats running around blind in the fog. Now, you wouldn't think this would be as big a problem as it is, but just let me tell you, it is a problem. Every once in a while you see a boat that's run straight into a rock pile or a jetty or something like that. Now, maybe that's alcohol related, maybe it's fog related, maybe that happened at night, but in any case, they really shouldn't run into a big pile of rocks. And a kayak, especially a small one, can be even harder to see than a big pile of rocks. Even though I have a bright yellow kayak on purpose to make it more visible, you still want to be careful. And the third thing is, I've seen it. I've helped some guys that got lost in the fog before, and they were really panicky, like out of their minds, panicked. And you don't want to lose your head. Even if the fog rolls in, I'm on a lake, there's nothing that's going to happen to me. I'm just going to float around for a while. I could look at my phone and see where I am on Google Maps, or some people have a compass app. In the ocean, I carry a real compass with me. So if, the phone goes overboard or the batteries die or whatever, I still have a compass. I fish in the Northeast, so let's say I'm out in the ocean, the fog rolls in, I don't know which way to go. If I just head west for long enough, eventually I will hit land. It's unavoidable. So you just have a few tools with you. There's no need to panic. If something goes wrong, you can usually sort it out. Alright, let's kick this into fast forward mode. It's always easier paddling in fast forward mode, and I can feel like I'm making more progress than I actually am. So fishing in fog is a great time to fish, but this again isn't fog, it's sea smoke, and sea smoke burns off quicker than fog. So all it takes is a little bit of sun, maybe a little bit more wind, and the sea smoke will dissipate, and all of a sudden it'll be a brighter sunny day. And like I said, a couple hundred yards from the lake, it's a different day. It's like a bright sunny day. And there's a little bit of a northeast wind, which I like. So the plan is to paddle to the other side of the lake in the fog, or sea smoke, and then try to find some fish and work my way back. It's not much of a plan, but I think it's going to work out all right. Mostly because of the fog. Fish really like the fog. It prolongs the morning bite, maybe by a half hour, an hour, which is good for me. I've got a bunch of rods rigged with me. I've got a jig and a minnow. I've got a fluke. I've got a super fluke junior, and I've got a topwater popper. And it didn't take too long until I was into some fish. I started out throwing a jig and a minnow. I've got a 1/4 ounce jig head, Picasso jig head, and a Strike King Z2 in the deal color. Cast it out, let it hit bottom, And I'm shaking that rod as I'm slowly winding that bait back in, shaking it the whole time. I got a loop knot on the jig head, so that bait is doing almost 180-degree flip-flop on the way back in. It's going left, right, and every once in a while I drop it down and let it hit bottom again, and then I start the shaking retrieve. And I got one. You can see that sea smoke starting to burn off. Get these like wispy upside down tornadoes, kind of dust devils. I thought about using the net, but he was hooked pretty well, and he's not a giant. And there he is. Not a bad way to start. On the board. So I stuck with the jig and minnow for a while. It was working, so I figured why not. Sometimes it seems like these fish keep banker's hours. And by that I mean they don't really wake up until later in the morning. And they could feed any time they want. There's plenty of herring around. There's plenty of bait fish for them to chase. But there's like that magical window. Sometimes it's 7, 7:30, 8 o'clock. They all decide to feed at once, and then it shuts down hard. That's why I'm out here in the morning usually. It's because I find the bite window to be pretty good. Uh-oh, that's something different. That's a chain pickerel that ate the jig and minnow. When I see him coming through the water, I know I want to get him in the net as soon as possible so he doesn't cut off that light leader. There he is. That's my first chain pickerel on the jig and minnow. Hopefully I don't run into too many more of them. Some fish started busting bait on top, so I paddled over towards them, and I got close enough so I could throw a zoom super fluke at them. I started out with the albino color. I like that when it's cloudy and foggy, and I still have a little bit of fog around. But soon after this I switched to electric shad, and I like the electric shad when it's partly sunny, partly cloudy, and that's probably a better match to the conditions I have right now than the albino shad color. The albino shad color I like basically when there's no sun, and we definitely have some sun now, but I had it tied on, might as well just throw it. And I got him. I hooked him good too. I'm going to need the pliers to pop that one free. He's not hooked badly, he's just kind of stuck pretty hard. There he is. Let me show him to you. Not bad, not bad. That's a nice smallmouth. Nice and fat from eating the herring. See ya. There are no fish showing right here, so I decided I'd go back to the jig and minnow. Bottom strolling or mid strolling. Let it hit bottom. Get my fluke rod out of the way. And then a couple quick cranks to get it up off the bottom. And boom, I got a fish. That didn't take too long. I was almost cracking it, like cracking a tube. But that was mostly just to get it up off the bottom. There's some weeds down there and other junk, and I don't want to spend too much time on the absolute bottom of the lake. I'm trying to fish down low, but not really into the junk that's down there. And I got a better fish. Anytime they're pulling the kayak along, that means I got a better fish on. I got a loop knot on that jig head, and I've already caught a couple fish, including that pickerel, so I'm being a little bit careful with that line and the knot. It's 6-pound Yozuri hybrid leader, which is closer in diameter to 10-pound of higher grade fluoro, and just about as strong in my opinion. but a heck of a lot cheaper, and that's why I use it. But I still have to baby it a little bit. I can't horse fish. It's not like fishing with straight 50-pound braid. I have to be a little bit careful. That's a little better fish. That's a nice largemouth. Nice and fat. Yeah. Now we're getting somewhere. There he is. See ya, fish. There's very little sea smoke left on the water now. The sun's doing a good job of burning it off. And I can see around pretty well now. I'm looking around to see if I can see or hear any fish busting. And until I see something worth chasing, I'm going to fish that jig and a minnow because it's just been so productive. A few quick cranks to get it up off the bottom. And then I'm going to shake it and reel slowly at the same time. And I got another one. Yeah, that Strike King Z2's been a pretty good bait on the jig head. And I fished with it for a couple days in a row before I finally started wearing out the plastic. And I might be able to use it for saltwater, but I think it's torn up enough now that I'm going to retire it from the jig and minnow. That one's not as big as the last one, but that's alright. They're all fun. Yeah, not bad. I'm going to cast right back to the same general area where I caught that last fish. See if I can get another one. I've got almost no wind, and I was interested to see if they would still eat the jig and minnow alright. And they don't seem to have a problem with that. You know, there's some lures I fish, I mean, like the classic would be a spinnerbait or a chatterbait, where it seems like I need wind to get them to eat it pretty well. And I just didn't know if they would still eat the jig and minnow without wind, and it seems like they ate it all right. Just a slow retrieve, shaking the whole time. I'm actually winding probably a little bit faster than I ought to. But as long as they're eating it, I guess it's okay. Just shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. And I got another one. I keep my drag fairly tight for the initial hook set. I want to bury that hook point pretty well. And then once I stick them, I loosen up right away because I'm trying to protect the leader and the leader knot. So far I've had pretty good luck. Another largemouth. About the same size as the last one. There he is. See ya. Alright, next cast. I'm still fishing in the same general area. I don't have any electronics on the boat. I certainly don't have any forward-facing sonar. So I'm fishing blind, and I'm fishing by feel. And as soon as I catch a fish, I'm generally going to cast right back in the same general area until it stops working, and then I'm going to fan cast it around and see if I can find another pot of fish. Just keep working that jig and minnow. Shake, shake, shake. I set up on another one. Let's see what this one is. I got that fluke on the front deck ready to go if any fish pop up in range. You know, when the sun comes out like this, the fish tend not to stay on the surface too long. So, yeah, you have to either be close to them or get on them pretty quickly. Otherwise, they go back down. And, you know, you could cast to where they used to be, you know, where they were blowing up on bait before. But they're not there anymore. You know, they either have gone down or moved 20 yards to the right or left. So it's really important to get on them quickly. But the jig and minnow is filling in the space while I'm waiting for fish to show up and doing a pretty good job of it. I mean, I could probably have a pretty good day just fishing the jig and minnow and forgetting about these fish busting bait on top. But I kind of like the topwater action, so I'm drawn to it. There he goes. There's some fish busting now. I'm going to pick up that fluke rod. I think the first cast I didn't get any, so this is my second cast. There's some to my left. And I got one on the fluke rod. That's a 610 Shimano X Pride medium. It's a hard jerkbait rod, but I think it's great for soft jerkbaits too, as long as you don't use a heavy wire hook. You can't use a superline hook with it. It doesn't have enough horsepower to set a superline hook, but I'm really liking that Gammy hybrid hook. Any kind of finesse hook or light wire hook is great with it too. I just released that fish and I got another one already. That one ate the jig and minnow as it was laying on the bottom, basically. I saw my line go tight as I was fighting the fluke fish. And I got another fish. You know, sometimes when the bite's on, you really can't do anything wrong. The fish were pretty agreeable on this morning. I think I remember this one. I think this was a largemouth. And he ate it a little deeply too, because I had it resting on the bottom while I was fighting the fluke fish. I should also say that in some other states you can only fish one rod at a time. Where I'm fishing, you can fish two. So that's why this is okay. First thing I'm going to do is cut the jig and minnow off so I'm not fighting the line as I'm trying to release that fish. There. So now the fish is essentially free, but I don't want to let him go with a jig head in his mouth. And my first idea was to try to pull that Strike King Z2 out of the way so I could see what the heck was going on. And then I'm going to go in through the gills and reverse the jig head. So instead of the jig head pointing up, the bend in the hook is going to be pointing up. And once I get that bend in the hook pointing up, the jig head's going to come out pretty easily as soon as I get a good grip on it. Just like that. Seems alright. He's full of it. Oh, they're coming up again. Gonna go for the fluke rod. Right there. That ought to do it. Let it sink a little bit. Slow twitches. It's funny, normally I fish the fluke pretty fast when I'm fishing blind. But if I see schooling fish, I try to slow down. I give them a chance to eat it. You know, they have a lot of options when they're busting up bait. There's a lot of herring in the mix. And I don't want to pull it away from them too fast. So normally if I'm just fishing like a weed flat or something, I'm going to fish that fluke pretty fast and try to get him to react. In this case, I don't want to pull the fluke away from them too fast because I'm afraid they'll just go after the real thing. There's, you know, thousands of herring down there. They can just go eat a regular herring. They don't have to eat a super fluke. So I want it to look like an easy target, an easy meal, maybe a dying shad or dying herring. And that seems to work out pretty well for me. Now these fish were busting off a point. And some of them got right up onto the point and were pushing bait fish onto the point. And so I slid up onto the point too, and I managed to get another largemouth. You see that marker buoy? Those are always good places to fish because they usually mark the long tapering end of a point or a rock pile or something like that. Anyway, in this case it's a point. And it's a shallow point that comes a ways out underwater, and it's a hazard for boating traffic, but also makes a good place for fishermen to cast. Now I'm on the inside turn of that same point. There's a few fish that popped up over here too. And I don't want to get too close to them. You see, I try to back paddle a little bit, so I'm not going to run directly over the fish that I'm trying to catch. Nice and slow, giving them a chance to eat it. As soon as they eat it, I set up on them. I like catching them on a fluke. I've mentioned this before, but it's fun for me to fish. It sticks them really well. I lose very few fish. And it doesn't, compared to something with like a pencil popper with 3 sets of trebles, it doesn't do as much damage to the fish as something like that. So they release well. This one got the hook in the bottom of jaw, so I couldn't lip him until I got the hook out. There he is. Not bad. Nice one. Thanks for playing, bud. Alright, I had a great morning out here. Caught a bunch of fish. I was a little nervous the bite would go away once that sea smoke burned off, but it seemed like it kept going for a good long time, so I was pretty happy about that. Star today, I don't know, it's probably a tie between the jig and minnow. That was a 1/4 ounce Picasso jig head and a 5-inch Strike King Z2 in the deal color. And a fluke. I used a couple colors. I had the albino color at the beginning and then electric shad once the sun started peeking through. Both did pretty well for me. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Just like all my other videos, I'll list all the gear, lures, colors, line, leader, all that good stuff in the video description. So you can duplicate what I was doing out here today and hopefully have some good success wherever you might be fishing around the country. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya!